Okay, it's Mayo Say back at it again with the Mayo Say! Wow, episode 7. I say as I finally complete the third version of the episode 7 script, which has spanned over very different topics every time. I tried making an extensive ramble about comparing Sims 3 to Sims 4, and failed miserably. I tried talking about compassion and some superficial baloney. Now I've decided maybe I should try doing the thing I did with episode 6. Take a viewing experience and dissect it until I've essentially committed acts against space-time itself. It just took me a long time to getting around that because I've been busy with the Tournament of Two Souls, a Twitter competition where we take our original characters and slap them around a bit. I'm currently a finalist in this whole shim-sham and had to dedicate a lot of time and energy to that. With the end in sight, I figured I might as well remind you all that this isn't a dead little series I have. But yeah, I guess I'll be dissecting Voyagers 2021. For context, I was given the strange opportunity to watch this for free as a congratulatory program my high school offered during the pandemic. We were socially distanced, and since I viewed it on a very hot Tuesday, I wasn't compromised with any extra crowds of people. Now, I watched it with my pal who I will not name, but it was an experience to say the least. To hop right into it, the synopsis goes, it's a good few decades into the future. Jeff Bezos has doomed us all, and we're thinking about creating a spaceship to send to an Earth-like planet, so that way we won't go extinct. Now, it's funny how we're smart enough to build a ship and a fail-safe program for these humans that'll last them 86 years in space, but not fix the crisis that is climate change. Anyway, back to the plot. Children are artificially created by meshing together the genes of super smart people. This creates 30 kids who are trained in complete isolation to become the pilots of the future. Initially, it would have taken them at least several more years being raised on Earth in isolation to be able to be launched into space and sent towards that planet. But some guy named Richard, who cared about those kids, made the bold decision to abandon his family and go with them. Like, if climate change is such an issue, and if they wanted to save the human race, wouldn't it be smarter to either send someone who didn't have a family to leave behind and let Richard die with his family, or let Richard take his family aboard so that way they could avoid the climate disaster ? Now, I may sound cynical, but I don't think there were any implications of his kids, which are photographed in the film, growing up. I might have forgotten. Regardless, he accelerates the project by several years and they're immediately launched into space. Now, for some fun context, the mission from Earth to that planet is supposed to take 86 years, but it took us 3 days to reach the moon. Okay, that doesn't sound so bad. Now, take into consideration the satellites, New Horizons, that launched in 2006. It managed to fly by Pluto in 2015. That's 9 years right there, and let's see. It never says anything about the name of the next habitable planet. I think only the star. Alpha Centauri, I think? You see, I'm not going to double check the footage in the prologue because going back and rewatching it hurts. I'll tell you why in several paragraphs. But back on track. Alpha Centauri, right. 4.36 light years away. Doesn't sound too bad, but you forget that light year, you know, the fastest thing in the universe. Let's boil that down to 9.46 trillion kilometers per light year. Pluto is 7.4 billion kilometers from the sun, minus the 150 million kilometers from between the sun and the Earth because we did not launch the satellite from our friendly neighborhood plasma ball. That gets us 7.25 billion kilometers. So it took them, around 8.05 million kilometers a year in that journey to fly by Pluto on average. Now, I'm under the assumption that to maintain 3 generations worth of life, the spacecraft is huge. Inertia can definitely accelerate that bad boy, but can it still save it from the actual distance itself? Considering that our planet spins itself around on its axis and the sun at breakneck speeds, these scientists had to do a lot of math to figure out that the planet that they'd be landing on would be perfectly placed at their arrival. Okay, but let's continue this math. I can't really assume how fast the Humanitas ship can move in the void of space. So for simplicity's sake, let's do the 9.46 trillion kilometers times 4.36. It gives us a really big number. Okay, now let's divide it by how many kilometers the New Horizons craft traveled in a year. And after our extensive little fibble-dibble in mathematics, I can confirm that the number of years it would take for the New Horizons satellite, and by a very, very rough extension, the Humanitas aircraft, to reach anything around Alpha Centauri would be... Look at the numbers here, it would be... 5,123,677.2 years. That's much more than 86 years. Yeah, but back to the story. Years pass, 10 to be exact, and the little children are now teenagers, just doing normal space teen stuff like being engineers, botanists, taking care of their basic physical health, and most importantly, drinking Gatorade. Mr. Botany Boy, whose actual name is Christopher, noticed something's funky with the water in the little artificial garden they've made. Richard absentmindedly tells them it was probably something in their pee or something, because, recycling. But Botany Boy, and later his bestie, Zach, hack into the mainframe while everyone else is sleeping, and realize that the Gatorade water they had been drinking actually contains a neurotoxin, according to Wikipedia, that suppresses emotions and basic human impulses that teens their age should normally experience. It's like puberty blockers, but they still, have their balls drop and stuff. And it's to prevent them from developing existential dread and subverting the quote-unquote artificial insemination program the ship apparently has installed. Yay! Anyway, the two are kind of hurt by the fact that they've been brainwashed, so as an act of protest, they stopped taking the Gatorade, which is actually dubbed the Blue. It should have actually been called the Smurf, but I guess that would have brought up more existential dread for two reasons. Who killed the Smurfs and put them in a neurotoxin beverage? And it would just also make them ask questions as to why it's called the Smurfs, and then realize it came from Earth, and then get all sad because, Earth, we came from that, but we don't know what it was. Anyway, there's like a weird flash sequence of Chris and Zach discovering their more human side and acting like kids. They wrestle each other, run through the halls, and goof around with the electricity. It's so funny too, because the other folks are looking at them like, oh, they're doing that, and barely anything else. Okay, and about the electricity bit, this is where one of the more painful aspects of the movie shows up. The harassment and cruelty towards this girl right here. Her name is Phoebe, according to Wikipedia.
A little jolt, a bolt, bite.
You know that's a waste of electricity.
Go away.
She's just trying to do her job and people keep making fun of her. She's sweet and sometimes a klutz, so it makes me sad what little love she gets. Okay, so before I describe this next part, I believe I added a disclaimer in the video via text somehow, but just in case you might have missed that, I am adding a content warning for sexual harassment/assault. Because unfortunately this movie features that, and I just want to let you know. Okay, the warning is about to expire, I'm about to go into it. Just letting you know, last chance to click off the video in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so this all seems to come to a head when Zach's brain notices the first aid officer, Sela, I forget her name, in a few ways. Long story short, woman! And he starts groping her. And then he tries to get all jiggy, but she's having none of it. The two actually begin a struggle, and Richard shows up in the nick of time to break it off. Richard is very upset that apart from learning engineering, mathematics, physics, doctoring, botany, and other things, that the kids didn't learn how to properly implement consent into the equation.
Are we still doing the repair?
Yeah. Come on.
Now, I forget when, but Selah? Okay, it's Selah. Our med officer gal has also been talking with Richard about Earth, and the two just kind of talk about what it was like there. Richard gently puts a hand on Selah's shoulder, and a peeping Zach assumes that physical touch alone signifies a great romantic/sexual connection.
He can touch her, but I can't.
So he's pretty jealous with that brain of his. So he kind of sits in the control room and watches the surveillance footage in the electric room with some dude named Kai, I think? Oh yeah, and there's also been a rumbling outside the hull of the ship, which has always been set aside as the contortion of metal around the engine as temperature changes. Nothing out of the ordinary there, but I guess it decided it got really loud at this particular instance, and BAM! Gore warning, Richard is dead. So, Big Papa Richard is dead, and there's also been a fire. After the fire settles down, the group is like, okay, so who's gonna be our first officer? Someone should suggest Sayla, but she literally goes,
What about Sayla? She's head medical officer.
I don't want to be chief.
So they hold an election between Chris and Zach, with the swag machine that reads their minds, and Chris is elected the first officer. Chris does a decent job in terms of directing the group and taking everyone off the gate array while making sure the ship's fire damage is repaired. There's a montage of people just vibing and enjoying themselves. They're running through the halls, feeling invigorated and laughing. And then the problem kind of arises when the group get too into this new sense of freedom. They start shunting their responsibilities, grinding each other in rooms, and not sitting properly on the table.
Teo, get down from there. Don't sit on the table.
That's right. You're not supposed to put your feet where you're eating.
Shut your face.
Chris gets a little fussy over this because obviously this ain't swag, and eventually Zach takes over in a way and claims that an alien killed Richard. Sayla is obviously still very sick of Zach for not only trying to assault her, but also for invading her personal space, which was formerly Richard's personal space, with a whole viewing party looking at his photos without the late Richard's permission. The two, along with a few other folks, team up and look around the destroyed security database. Zach soon follows, claiming that the alien is hiding there. They're clattered, and Zach and Kai run out all frazzled, claiming the alien attacked them. Chris seemed to be just vibing with Sayla and holding a somewhat corrupted version of the footage data on the day that Richard was murdered. Oh yes, and this will be important for the next scene. Kai previously was getting all busy grinding up with some girl I don't remember the name to, cause why would names be important for the rest of the cast, right? Anyway, this dude named Peter, according to Wikipedia. Okay, come on, seriously? You gave these guys like the whitest sounding names imaginable. It's just boring. Anyway, Kai and Peter get into a fight because and Kai gets a head injury. Now, let's skip forward a bit. Chris and Sayla have the fun, sexy times because they suddenly know how to French kiss and do all that stuff now. They wake up by Zach and are kind of made fun of and invited to his glutton lunch party, considering that Zach is also a hedonist with the mind of a 5-year-old. Chris waddles over to the giant cell phone built into their wall and does stuff with the footage to demonstrate that, ooh, what do you know? Zach actually killed Richard by restarting the electric current while Richard was operating on an open wire. And everyone is obviously pretty mad because Richard was like their father. So then, we learned that not only did the children not learn about consent, but also critical thinking skills with an ethical dilemma. Zach saves his own skin by claiming that the murder was justified to protect the crew from the alien that somehow inhabited Richard.
Because I saw the alien in him. The alien was in Richard. And then Christopher brought it inside. That's not true. You shouldn't have.
He then managed to get their attention on Peter, who was all aggro before, and claimed that the alien actually hopped into him, and they chased him down. You see, Peter tried so hard to avoid winding up on screenshots on Reddit, but he just managed to wind up dead. Beaten to it. So now, Chris, Sayla, the girl Phoebe that I only knew the name because Wikipedia told me, and 2 other folks hid away, trying to do stuff and stop Zach from being a fascist. Chris suddenly remembered that there was also a hidden compartment blocked off from the rest of the crew that he figured out when he was hacking the database to figure out what was wrong with this P. That was actually a weapons room meant for the 3rd generation of humans when they reach the planet. Chris tries to hack in, but apparently he's really good at digging up secrets, just not weapons, and the door beeps. Some of Zach's subordinates show up and discover the noise, and Zach's group get there and arm themselves before Chris can. The two people I'm too lazy to name turn themselves in out of fear and lead the Zack army to Chris, Sayla, and Phoebe. Phoebe tries to give them a lecture as to why this coup does nothing, and everyone regresses into a group of second graders and tells her to shut up. You know what? Just have the footage. It's so dumb.
We're trying to make sense here, and you are not listening.
Shut up.
Shut up. Shut up. Shut up.
Shut up. Shut up. Shut up.
And then she is promptly shot and killed, with her chest being deep fried. She was done so dirty in this film, I swear. Shantae Adams, I believe the name is. I hope that you get better opportunities than this. Anyway, I think Sayla tries to seduce Zack, but he's moved on to greener pastures and just opts to capture them. Opts? Whatever. Chris and Sayla do a sprint, and after going into the med office, kill Kai with a swift blow to the head with a fire extinguisher. Chris now has a gun. Good for him. He promptly loses it. Zack, being all trigger happy, blasts through all the doors Zack and Sayla lock behind them, and eventually they find themselves in the airlock chamber. Chris and Sayla have spacesuits, but Zack doesn't. There's a struggle until Zack gets the good suck and is thrown into the void where he belongs. It's so funny because you can hear the system telling them how much oxygen is left in the ship overall. But when the pair return to where the rest of the Zack gang is, they're pretty fine and not turning blue or purple. In fact, they give up rather easily when they figure out that the Zack man is dead, and peace returns. Sayla becomes the first officer, then pregnant with Chris's child because I'm sure Chris was too uneducated to know about. She has a baby. The other 76 years fly by without a hitch, the consumption of Gatorade is abandoned, and they all reach the planet as old people. Now, that's sweet and all, but I have a few gripes. The whole alien dilemma. The footage before Richard dies initially has like this dark, malicious presence, almost as if something external was trying to attack him, but we know it's just him unfortunately being zapped. That's a cheat in the narrative right there. What, do they have Adobe After Effects in that ship? Also, I neglected to mention this, but this is supposed to be a multi-generational ship. They've been told time and time again, and have expressed the worries about their purpose and their ship, that all they're going to do is die partway through.
It'd be good.
Why? We're just gonna die in the end, so why can't we do what we want? What's the difference whether we're good or not?
There's a big difference.
Well, I don't see it.
I think they were trying to go for an existential gripe at the dread one feels being far from home in an understimulating environment, but forgot that 40 years into the future and they probably already have the means to prolong your life farther than the US average. Well, have a chart on their average lifespans, I guess. If I'm being honest, this movie is like Interstellar, that one sci-fi movie about people orbiting around Earth and then they have an alien spore baby that actually wants them dead, and Lord of the Flies had a child, the emotionally neglected, that always wanted to gain attention by lashing out at others, yet managing to blend into the background to be as unnoticeable as possible. It's, meh at best. It was, however, very entertaining to write this script, and it made me feel like I'm smarter than I anticipated. Swag. Thank you again for watching this video. I think I might do more movie reviews until I have something I want to talk about beyond that. But for now, it's good to be back. This is Mayose, signing off. Bye-bye!